twice a week, interviewing different entrepreneurs and experts on all areas of business. So make sure to join our Facebook group and look out for the event inside your entrepreneur resources page. You can find all the links in the description box. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Denise. Good to be here.
Raechelle is a financial abundance coach, real estate investor, entrepreneur, and educator. She spent the last 15 years leading clients and other financial advisors to uncover their why with money. She's spent thousands of hours guiding and educating on what principles of financial wellness are and how to use money as a tool to create security and freedom to live out a dream life. So today we'll learn the 5 financial abundance habits that you don't know to get you the income that you desire. So I'm super excited to chat with you. But before we dive in, I would love for you to share more about your business and your journey with us. Start wherever you want.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was frozen for a second. No worries. Yeah. So my journey started really 15 years ago when I got into finance. I started in college. I kind of learned the ropes of investing, then I learned the ropes of insurance. And what was really interesting to me at that point was this complete separation of ways to do money. And what I mean by that is, like, on the investment world, it's all about investing in the stock market and all these things. And then on the insurance side, it's all about protection. And both sides like hated each other from like a insurance guys would talk negatively about the investment guys. And it was so confusing to me because for me, I thought there was a place for both. So when I started my financial practice, 3 years into my career, I was like, okay, there's got to be a way to just have both. Like, both make sense for different points in our lives. So why wouldn't we do both? Right. And so that was like my first experience of like, why not both? And as my career progressed, I had multiple instances of that over time where I just saw there was like a huge disconnect in um, financial advice, but also the planning process of helping people actually have both, like, fast forward longer term, have both fulfillment in life and financial wellness. So it doesn't have to be hard to make money. It doesn't have to mean that you don't enjoy what you do to make money, right? Like, there's all these limiting beliefs that we have around money because that's how we were taught, either culturally or within our own family dynamics. There's also a lot of limiting beliefs around like how women make money or don't make money, or how smart women are with money. So from that standpoint, I just wanted to integrate like more and more information so that we get to have both. Like, there's always this both and conversation coming along. So that's been kind of like my educational journey. My personal journey with it has also been really interesting because I had actually worked in my financial planning practice for about 4 years before I became so sick and so diminished from that process that I had to declare bankruptcy. I was in the hospital multiple times. Like, I had adrenal failure, like basically crash and burn, right? So in my crash and burn, that's when I really had to get clear on like what I wanted this to look like. And for a while, I didn't even want to be in finance anymore because I was failing at it myself and I didn't know how to overcome it. I didn't know how to be good at it. And through that kind of like process and healing and journey, it really was clear to me, like, I just had to make a decision. I had to decide that I didn't want to be broke anymore. I had to decide that I didn't want to have this hard journey anymore, right? Because we just kind of like go with the flow and we don't really think about like what we want it to look like. And so I distinctly remember I was in Thailand and I was on the beach and just looking at the horizon, and I distinctly remember deciding that day, like, I get to have these types of experiences for the rest of my life. Like, I am the creator of these experiences, traveling and like doing really fun things that I just hadn't had a whole lot of up until that point. So um, that's where I just decided. I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And then, fast forward 5 years later, I had created multiple streams of income. I had created over 7 figures at that point, and it was just like, wow, okay, looking back, I'm like, that happened so fast. But like as I was going through it, it was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like the whole process, the journey is crazy. And so now I'm really in a good place where my passion is to help people help with that roadmap, to really be like the support, the project manager, if you will, the consultant, whatever someone really needs to get further along on that financial wellness journey, wherever they are at in those kind of processes. It's like, okay, let me help get behind you, give you the accountability that you need to be successful and to truly see that success through once you've decided that that's what you want. So that's just little bits and pieces of kind of my journey.
Yeah, that is so incredible. I love your journey. I feel like a lot of the time entrepreneurs get caught up with like a lot of the shiny things, right? Like Instagram and YouTube. When you're starting out with your business, you're like, yes, I'm gonna, create content and all of that. Do you think entrepreneurs should learn to discover their finances first, or at least like prioritize that before jumping into the shiny objects?
Yeah, that's my preferred method. And that's why I sit here and offer kind of a different thought process to start with. Like I start with the money conversation because if you aren't confident or comfortable with even having your own money self-talk be strong at a foundational level, how are you going to ask others to pay you for services that you offer in a way that allows you to make a living and in a way that allows you to really expand into what you're meant to do and your purpose in life. And that's just what I've seen time and time again. It's like you hire, to your point, like you do the YouTube, you do the IG, you hire a business coach, you hire a marketing coach, and then you're completely spent and burnt out because you have so many things telling you to do so many different directions, but you aren't doing the one thing that you want, and that's make money and feel fulfilled. So it's like, how do we integrate that first and understand what that even means and looks like? Because if we don't know what that looks like from a vision standpoint or even from a foundational standpoint, how are you going to expand into all the fancy stuff, all the shiny objects, right? So it's
Oh my
very
gosh, so
kind of
true.
foundational.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I love that. So that is a great like kind of segmentation that is like such a I don't know, I feel like there's so many like people out there that needs to listen to this message and hear this message because me, like I'm super guilty about this, but I never really care about my finances. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to invest into that. I'm going to get this software, get this tool, get this course. And I'm like, oh gosh, I've spent so much money and like what is the like how does it balance out at the end, right? And I don't realize it because I don't pay attention. So that's why I'm super excited for this conversation today. I know that you have 5 financial abundance habits that you're going to share with us. Do you want to start with those and then kind of gradually go through the 5?
Yeah, I think I have kind of some stories around why I've decided on these five
Yes.
too, just as we go through it. But um, before I kind of dive into sharing it, I think what the core thing is that you want to understand about this is it truly is a journey, right? And I share with my clients often, like, let's create the roadmap to your financial wellness because you might be starting here at point A, someone else might be starting at point D, so on and so forth. So for me, I can see the framework, I can see the roadmap really clearly from having done it thousands of times with clients and done financial planning for years. But without you seeing the framework, like you don't know even where you're going, right? So it's like, how are you even going to create like sustainable goals? So that's kind of the reason why I created these like 5 things that like, no one ever tells you, simply because I don't know that many people have, to your point, really thought about it. So it's not like an area of focus because everyone thinks that they need like the fancy tool or this thing because that's just going to help their business explode. Or even in like careers, like they think that climbing the corporate ladder is going to be the fulfillment that they want because now they're going to make the money that they want. And having done it myself, like I just know that's not true. And so it's like, what is really truly creating like this state of abundance for you? And so the first one is exactly that. It's knowing and understanding and embodying that you are already abundant. And when we think about those words out loud, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But like really sit with that. Like you are already abundant. And what does that mean? You are already abundant in love, in joy, in peace, in financial well-being. You just haven't been identifying with it or acknowledging it or aware of it. So it doesn't feel like that's maybe true at times. And so the more we can actually focus our attention on even those words, I am already abundant, I'm already wildly abundant, then our ways of being start to shift into like knowing that, believing that, trusting that, and acting like it, like in our behavior. So that one for like a lot of people is very powerful, just shifting, like knowing versus being. What most of the time happens is being in this place of scarcity, and it's scarcity of not just money but scarcity of time is a big factor. So if someone's feeling like, I have a client who she's constantly running late. Like I can guarantee she will run late to our sessions, like when she shows up to them, right? And so I pointed it out to her, like, hey, I just want you to be aware that this is happening in your life, not just like with our sessions, but in your life. You are constantly running behind, and you are actually making these decisions to run behind because of how you are showing up in life. And what would it look like if you were always on time or early? Like, how would that feel? And she just stopped and was like, holy shit, you're right. Like, that would feel really amazing to just be on time, right? And it's like, yeah. And then how much more presence do you have with yourself when you feel good about being on time? Like, you feel really good about that. And then that progresses into momentum around, like, well, maybe I can have more than enough money or enough money to pay the bills, right? And like, it just creates this momentum of feeling like there's more than enough in all things all around me. And that's where, even if you can't start with the money piece, because that's really, really difficult for some people, it's starting with time, with love, with things that are less tangible that you actually can feel like you have control over, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually really love that you pointed out, just being punctual. It's such a small thing, but then it can lead to so much more because at the end of the day, it's all about taking those small steps, right? Like if you can change that tiny little thing in your life and then, like every day improve like a tiny bit better, and then ultimately, like over time, you're going to be way better, right? So it's about taking those small little actions every single day. So I really love what you said about this little tip that you have, this little first step that is so important, right? Shifting your mindset. So thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, please give us the next one.
Yeah. One last thing I'll add on that one, because it reminded me of a book that's really powerful along the lines of like doing little one thing at each and every day. The book is called The Slight Edge. And the guy who wrote it
Mm,
basically tells, have you heard of it? The Slight Edge?
yeah. Yep.
hmm It basically gives you stories of like, how can you just make like a little change, a little shift here each and every day. And then over a year, you have 365 shifts, which result in a lot of change. And it's
Hmm.
so true. Like, it's just the slightest things, and focusing on those like just really help create momentum in overall like big life shifts.
Yeah, because I think there's another book called Atomic Habits. That's
hmm
also another one that's about like making tiny changes every single day and making them into your habit. So then, they'll stick. Because if you do like, for example, going to the gym, like it's super difficult in the beginning to try to
hmm
stay consistent, but it's all about, making like micro commitments. And then over
hmm
time, you see like results. It will be easier for you to stick to the new habit that you have built for yourself. So I love how it ties into the 5 habits that you have for us today.
hmm Yep, exactly. Okay, so the second one is focusing on your financial vision. And this is kind of a subset of like your bigger vision for your life. So a lot of people have like vision boards and kind of go through vision journaling and that kind of thing. And some people neglect the financial part because they don't want to feel selfish, or like finances have to be like a goal in their journey, even though they want that secretively. They just won't admit it to themselves. Or some people make a lot of financial goals, but then really don't see them through. And what I typically see is there's no habit around continuing to refocus your energy back on that vision. And what ends up happening is most people are constantly focused on like, how am I going to pay that bill, or how am I going to invest more, or how am I going, like, it's always this how question. How am I going to do all of these things, instead of like just focusing on the vision? Because what's really powerful about shifting your focus to that is you actually start to embody a more dreamlike state of like, okay, I could see myself buying this house. I could see myself buying this car. I could see myself having this much in savings. I can see it's a constant conversation of seeing it into existence. And from just and this is going to get super sciencey, but like quantum physics is a thing, right? So quantum physics is like this ability to play in possibility. And the more you can play in possibility of seeing something through, the more likely you are actually going to attract it from an energetic standpoint. And so if you're actually focusing your energy on that vision, on the financial vision specifically, you can then actually bring it into fruition much more quickly, because now your energy is focused on that instead of the lack of, or not having it, or, kind of the how am I going to get it done. And I'll share a funny story around this. So my boyfriend, he likes to focus on how is it going to get done? Like, I'm going to make X amount of money and I have to do this amount of sales to get this done. And he's constantly creating anxiety for himself around like, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? And that's like the state of like level of energy he sits in. And it's like, dude, calm down. What would it look like to just see it as being done? Like, just literally meditate on it for 5 minutes each and every day before you start your day. Like, okay, I have 3 calls today. I'm going to have 3 amazing conversations with some amazing humans. I'm going to create an amazing experience for them. And naturally, they're going to say yes. And naturally, the work will get done, right? If you focus on that, that just brings you to such an easier sense of peace around it, that like, okay, now I can be detached from the outcome. Now I can not worry about how it's going to get done. I just get to show up and be the best version of myself and focus on that vision of like creating this amazing experience and giving people what they need and supporting them how I need to support them. And that's how it actually happens. So
Yeah, oh
that's
my
the
gosh, I
second one.
love that. Yeah, because like I feel like when you visualize and focus on the vision, you don't get so caught up in like trying to chase those little process and like every single step. Because sometimes it can be so easy being caught up in that moment and being like, okay, what do have to do right now? What do I have to do like the next step, instead of like, no, but this is where I want to be. And it also motivates you, right? Like if you can kind of see it in your head and visualize it and feel like you already have achieved it, it's easier to get to that point and see yourself in those like in the future, right? So yeah, I think it's super powerful, that visualization, that like, focusing on the vision.
Yeah, it's super helpful. The next one is kind of a fun one that we do in our household. So I read the book Happy Money by Ken Honda, and he is Japanese. And so in certain parts of Japanese culture, they will thank their money. And they're basically thanking their money when it comes in, thanking their money when it leaves their world. And so arigato is like the word that they use. And I'm probably not saying it right, but that's what we say in our house. We constantly,
You are saying
yeah,
it right.
okay. We constantly yell in our house like arigato, and like it is a theme in our house. So we've actually created
Wow.
a really fun experience around it, where when we like, because we're both in sales, right? When we get a new client or we sell something, like we literally scream out loud. It's kind of like how on Wall Street they'll ring a bell, which most people probably don't
Yeah.
know, but they ring a bell when they get sale or stock or whatever. We basically yell arigato. And then when we actually make a purchase, we try to do this with most purchases, especially larger purchases, like even paying the mortgage, or making big investments in ourselves, we yell arigato at the same time. So what's interesting about that from a mindset perspective is you are thanking your money when it comes in, you're thanking your money when it leaves. So this habit is simply letting it flow. Letting money flow allows you to give and receive. It allows you to be in this reciprocity type of mentality and a gratitude mentality when money leaves. Because a lot of times people, and I experienced this when I was feeling lack and was feeling broke, I was always worried about like, oh, is my credit card going to get declined? Or am I going to swipe the card and there's not going to be money there? Versus had I come from a place of abundance, even just mentally, right? Regardless of the dollars in my bank account, like, could I just thank my money because it was there to provide me with food or to provide me with paying the rent or whatever it was, right? And your mind can't actually have two feelings at the same time. It can't be in a state of gratitude and a state of guilt or scarcity or shame at the same time. So when you shift into that state of gratitude, you actually enable you to be an attractor of building more wealth, of actually creating more income in your life. So that simple shift and like being able to let money flow, money coming in, money coming out, and being in a state of gratitude is really, really powerful.
Wow, I've actually never heard this before. And now that you say it, I'm like, oh, it makes so much sense. Because, like, I love when you brought up the fact that a lot of the time we feel like ashamed or like we feel guilty for spending the money or using money because, like sometimes we like to use money for things, that like either move us forward in life or like move our business forward in life, make us happy. And we shouldn't feel guilty about it. Like, not at all, right? And
No.
it's just I guess like that whole like being like grateful for having money or having it like coming in, going out, like just changing and shifting your mindset about that. It's so powerful. What's the name of the book again, if you don't mind repeating?
Yeah. So Happy Money is the name of the book,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
by Ken Honda is the writer.
Yeah, amazing. I'll leave it in I'll leave it in the description. I'm like, oh, mind blown. I'll leave it in the description box down below, and I'll also check it out for myself. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's a good, easy read about money. And what I like about how Ken positions the book, he actually interviews billionaires because he's really curious about, okay, there's got to be a point at which you're just happy with life and happy with the amount of money you've earned. And like, there is no, there's a limit to that, right? And he interviews all
Hmm.
these billionaires, and each one is like, well, no, I still want to make more money because, I don't have a private jet. And he's like, okay, that's crazy. Goes on to the next one. Well, no, I don't, the one that has the private jet. Well, no, I'm not happy with money because I don't have a bigger private jet, right? And he just goes
uh,
on and on and on. And it's like, oh, no one's happy or content with money because they aren't simply being happy and content with their money, right? It's like so
mhm.
simple and so counterintuitive, yet our cultures just constantly drive us for more and more and more. And we could
Mm,
literally just create this state of abundance and contentment and gratitude with money wherever we are on like that kind of climb that we're on, and be content along the way, which then actually opens us up and to receiving more money. So it's a very interesting, like counterintuitive dynamic.
yes, absolutely. I love this point so much. I love this habit. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to read the book first, and then I'm going to try my best and implement this.
Yes.
And I love that
Arigato
it's
all day.
yeah. Yeah, oh my gosh, I love this. I mean, I speak Japanese, so I feel like it should come as second nature to me. Oh my gosh, awesome. So, yeah, let's go into the other habit, like the next one.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep. The next one is harder than I think it should be. And I think it's because we make it hard. It's having accountability with like an accountability buddy. So, and knowing that you want to change your financial situation. I think the hardest part is most of the people we surround ourselves with are kind of at a similar financial level as we are. So it's a matter of actually seeking out someone who you see as maybe a mentor or good with money, doing better than you with money, and creating some form of accountability or mentorship around that. The minute you can kind of step out of your comfort zone and create that dynamic, even if you literally ask someone who maybe isn't like a money person, right? They're not a financial coach or anything like that, but say, hey, I acknowledge you for doing really well with your money, and I would love to just sit with you maybe once a month for an hour or once a quarter for an hour and like learn how you operate with money. Do you mind if I do that with you? And can you hold me accountable to, these are some of the goals that I have. Maybe I want to save more, I want to spend down, or I want to pay down my debt, whatever those, like maybe pick one or two goals and have them hold you accountable to that. Because an accountability partner, like think about like even with the gym, like you actually go to the gym more if you have someone showing up and meeting you there, right?
So true. Oh my gosh. Like I'm like, yes. I've never gone to the gym by myself. Like every time I've gone to the gym, it's because I have an accountability partner that I'm like, oh my gosh, do I have to go? And they say, yes, of course you do. We made the plan yesterday. I'm like, okay, I'll go. So that
Right.
kind of like, yeah, moves me forward because otherwise I would
Mhm.
be like, I'm just gonna sleep a bit more.
Totally. So I just encourage everyone to do the same thing with money, even on the slightest. Like, you don't have to have someone who knows your whole money situation, but if someone else in life, and it doesn't have to be someone you maybe are close to, knows like, hey, I'm trying to save 10% more of my money. Can you just be my accountability buddy in that? Is there anything I can help hold you accountable to? And you just create that relationship and that connection. And it's so powerful. We do this in my mastermind group. And it really allows us to, one, get more vulnerable about what's really going on in life because we operate in this Instagram frenzied world of like everything's perfect for everyone. And that's like so far from the truth. So if we're just honest and like really vulnerable with, these are my goals, this is what I want to get to. And I really would love accountability in that. Like it's so powerful. And the likelihood of success increases like over 80% if you actually have an accountability buddy.
100%. I think not just finance, but even business, like having an accountability partner can put you in, like such a great position where you can feel supported, but at the same time, like someone's gonna be like, hey, what are you doing? That's not what you're supposed to be doing, right? Um, and I think, yeah, having an accountability partner is amazing. I love that you also offer that inside your mastermind. So that's definitely something we're going to talk about at the end of the interview. So, yeah,
Yep.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was our fourth habit, right?
Yep, one more to go. So the last one
Nice.
here is it's more of like a mindset shift, but it's also understanding that creating multiple sources of income is where you get to go. Because when most people have like one source of income, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in your career, you kind of just have this one focus on this one way to make money. And when you come from a state of abundance, you actually have like unlimited opportunities to make money. So the more we can actually open ourselves up to all possibilities of how it could look to make money, the more money we will actually make. And I'll give you an example of this because I think some people diminish their ability to be a resource to someone else. And we're all on this journey together and we've all had experiences. And the more you can be okay with monetizing those experiences from a place of sharing and knowing that like so and so is further behind from you where you are, but you could really coach them, package something up to share your knowledge and be a resource to them and create income for yourself. Like the more we all do that, the more we're actually sharing in a kind of knowledge educational capacity to help us all rise together. So I know it kind of seems like philosophical, but even like in some of the groups that I'm a part of, it's literally just sharing knowledge to this point of like being a resource, but also creating an income stream from that resource, right? And enabling yourself to do that on multiple levels, on multiple fronts, it actually can be really easy to have 5, 10, 15 sources of income and just know when that's a tool in your toolbox to pull up for someone. So like affiliate agreements, like you're talking to someone and they could really use like life coaching, for example. I went through an entire life coaching course through Bob Proctor, and now I'm affiliate. So like I could share that with someone. I could get paid off of it, but my experience in sharing that with them could be a really great resource. I could be an accountability buddy for them, right? It creates this whole experience. So that's like an example. Or like creating workbooks or whatever anyone is good at. Like do what you're good at, do what you love, be purposeful in that and intentional with it. And the more you can actually create these resources, these ways of showing up to be a resource to someone else, you can actually turn it into income if you're intentional about it. So that's the last one.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. What would you tell people that, for example, are going through imposter syndrome? They think, oh, I'm not good enough. I have nothing to share. Or, who am I to be sharing tips or charging for it? Like getting over that money mindset too, right? Like
Mhm.
how would you suggest these people kind of go through this kind of mental block?
Yeah. It's really as simple as like deciding to start, right? So you make this decision to start and you can start at such a low I don't want to say low pricing, but like it's a process, right? So I didn't start like my coaching at this point starts at $15,000. Like I didn't start there. I didn't decide one day like I'm just going to charge $15,000 to like work with me. Like there's no way. Like I'd have so much imposter syndrome, right? But I started at $1,800 and I'm like that feels good to me. Like wow, what would it be like to go from zero, like not charging anything for my knowledge, to 1,800? That felt pretty good. And then from I literally every single client ramped it from there. So the next one was $5,000. What would feel good? And that was my constant conversation with myself. It's like, what kind of value would I feel good sharing? How do I package it? And then kind of ramping it up as I gain more knowledge and experience and expertise, and getting to this place of like now my all my packages start at 15,000, and that feels good to me, right? But it doesn't start like that. And so it could be as simple as like charging $20 for a workbook you create that you have already seen people love something that you do. And now instead of you having to explain it every single time, you just create a workbook out of it. Say, hey, I made a workbook for that. It's 20 bucks, sell it, right? Like it's so simple, but so many people neglect doing that because of, kind of to your point, they don't know where to start. It's imposter syndrome. It's like, is this valuable? If you're getting asked to do something, it's valuable. Multiple times, it's valuable to someone somewhere, right? So then start to really create a documentation process. And I think this is where I struggle, and my boyfriend's really good at this. He's good at documenting and systematizing everything. And so he has an arsenal of documentation around all the things he could potentially sell someone, right? But in even doing that, recognizing who's asking you what kinds of questions and what kind of value are they receiving from you from a resource center, just as yourself and your experience, like, and then create things from that. So it's hard because we have to wrap our mind around like how we charge for something and how we actually provide value, but it's easy once you start thinking in that capacity. So the real habit is thinking, how can I do this and make this happen?
100%. I think also a lot of the time, like people get so caught up being like, okay, I need to be charging like the same price as these big marketing gurus, right? But then that's not true. I love what you said. It's all about taking those steps. And it kind of comes back to our previous point where we talked about, the atomic habits and like, like making small changes every single day. Obviously, it's not about like raising a price every single day. You can maybe, but it's more about, like taking things one step at a time. And I love that you mentioned about creating a $20 workbook. Like if that is the first step, then you can like then create like a webinar where you can sell for like $49 or something like that. It can be gradual. So it doesn't have to be from like free content to like charging $1 million.
Yep,
So yeah,
exactly.
100%. So if someone were to start from scratch today as an entrepreneur, what aspect of their finances do you think they should focus on like right away?
Yeah. So I have, and we'll probably, I don't know if we'll talk about this now or later, but one of my freebies is the 5 vitals to financial wellness and financial health. And it's kind of like the concept of when you go to a doctor and you get your vitals checked, right? Like when was the last time you checked your financial vitals? Like, do you have savings? Do you have a strong emergency fund? Do you have, this is an important one, a rent or mortgage payment that's less than 25% of your overall take home pay, and like little things like that. It's funny because for me, these things are so ingrained in me, and so like everyone should know that. I think everyone knows that, but I know that they don't. Like that's like the basics, right? So especially as an entrepreneur, like start off with the basics and the foundational education so that you can build upon that and then go invest in Bitcoin or whatever, that crazy stuff, right? Like the fancy shiny object, kind of like what we talked about before. It's like it always goes back to that foundation. And if you don't have a strong foundation, you are going to have shifts in the soil, right? If you literally built a house on bad foundation, like where is that going to break or fall later on because you didn't start with a strong foundation? So the more you can be in practice of those strong foundational tools financially, the more easy it's going to be to build upon that, especially as you grow your business.
Such a great nugget. Oh my gosh. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Where can we find this freebie of yours? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so you can find it on my website, which is financialfitnessunleashed.com/5vitals.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I'll leave it in the description box as well for anybody that's interested in checking it out. Do you have any other tools or any software, any other tips to help any kind of like, whether people with their finances or moving them away from being blocked and stuck in their current mindset? Like any tools or anything that you can share before I let you go?
Yeah, yeah. So I do offer a financial execution strategy call. So what I go through on that call is basically you sign up for Personal Capital, which is a separate website. It's not associated with me, but it's a free tool online, personalcapital.com. And I actually do a review on there with you. So we review what is in the gap essentially. So from an execution standpoint within your finances, what's working, what's not working, and what can be improved upon. And it's a really quick, easy way to understand like, okay, these are the things I could be working on. And then we can decide, all right, does it make sense for you to do like one of the programs that I have or do coaching or do it on your own because there's, little pieces that you need to put together from your foundation first before it makes sense to continue building.
Amazing. I'll link again everything in the description box for anyone that's interested in checking it out. And before I let you go, I'd love for you to share where we can find out more about you, where people can connect with you online.
Yep. So on Instagram, my handle is Abundance Queen Life. That is where I put all things abundance related. That is like my passion right now. That's kind of where I'm at in my life. But the other place would be at Financial Fitness Unleashed. I am actually going to load up my blog later this week. So I have a bunch of different topics and articles that are related to specifically Financial Fitness Unleashed. As the name kind of sounds, it's really helping you unlock what's in the gap financially.
Amazing. Thank you again so much for being on your Entrepreneur Resources show. You've provided such actionable tips and strategies. I'm sure a lot of people have walked away with a lot of notes. So entrepreneurs that's listening, in case you want to get the summary of the interview, make sure to check out our show notes, which I'll link in the description box as well. We have our live interviews with experts twice a week, so make sure to stay tuned and join our community on Facebook. And again, you can find all the links in the description box. We've also started speed networking rooms on Clubhouse where you can connect and collaborate with like-minded entrepreneurs. So if you're on Clubhouse, follow me at Denise and come say hi and chat with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and tuning in, and I'll chat with you